I could literally just feel, and it was so weird how you almost get like a tunnel vision because you almost like don't even know. It's like slow motion, but you can literally hear and the whizzing, and I don't know how to explain it, but at that point when I felt the thing hit my arm, or the bullet hit my arm, my gosh, it's just a graze. But I felt like someone hit me with a baseball bat full force in my arm. So I know there was, it was something hit me.
You got hit in the upper arm?
It fractured my humerus, and then it ricocheted down the bone and shattered my radius. So it did a complete U-turn, which thank God it did, because if it would have gone through the under part of my armpit, that area is not covered by your vest. So I was very lucky. It was definitely a miracle. And my partner's like, Cristina, you've been hit. I'm like, no, I'm good. He's like, no, look at your arm. And it's just hanging. I'm like, yeah, I guess not. But I'm right-handed. So I still have my gun in my hand. I was still standing up. And it's still going on. So it wasn't like, everything stopped.
Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. So let's get into this. How'd your event go this week?
It was awesome. Like I said, we got first place, and it was cool running around with there was another, in fact, I told her about what I was doing, a police officer and her husband, and he looks more like a cop than she does. It's kind of funny. And then the council member from Menifee, and then we had everyone from different reality shows and doing that scavenger hunt, and then a lip sync contest on Friday night. And then we all came in on Thursday, but we had like an event on Thursday. It was like a red carpet thing.
For this event, do you guys always host it in Temecula?
No. Well, yeah. Every year they do this one. I mean, she was saying she's not doing it next year, but she says that every year. So she'll do it next year. But they raise so much money for breast cancer for Michelle's Place. And have you been to Michelle's Place?
I've heard of it. I haven't been there.
You should go there. It's amazing. And they help everybody. So if an officer gets cancer, a male or female, they have resources for their bras, their hair, for guys to talk to other guys. Like there's some barbershop guy that is next door. So he comes, his wife had cancer. So he comes and talks to all the guys. So he's like, okay, guys, every week, every Thursday or something, come out and we're going to just have a guys thing. That way they can talk about what they're going through, the trauma they're going through with their wives and how, or kids or whoever's having this cancer, or even themselves. So it's pretty cool.
Very cool.
And everything gets paid for.
So going backwards before we go forwards, where'd you grow up?
Santa Monica, born and raised.
And as come from a big family, small family?
Oh, big. So my dad was married prior to my mom, so he has two daughters. They're older. Then there was two sisters before me, but one died. Then there's two younger sisters and a brother.
So a very large family.
Yes.
Growing up, what was your life like? Were you very into school? Were you into sports?
Oh, yeah. I went to Notre Dame, so what do you call it? I was all into, I wanted to be a lawyer. I'm like, I'm going to private school, so I want to go to Harvard or all these different things. And then
you saw how much it cost.
I know, right?
And
I'm like, yeah, maybe not. And then my dad got killed when I was 12. So when that happened, everything kind of shifted. So I was 1 year in the girls' high school at Notre Dame, and then I realized it was going to be too expensive for my mom. So at that point, she transferred to public school at Samo High, so Santa Monica High School. So I was there for 3 years, and then during those 3 years, I was an explorer, because at that point I knew I wanted to be a cop. So I was an explorer, park and checker, water conservation officer, community service officer, college police officer, and then police officer in Santa Monica.
So you knew while you were in high school that you wanted to be a cop?
Yeah.
Did you know earlier in life that you were? I know you said you wanted to be a lawyer. But
yeah, because like my dad was a cop, my uncle was a cop, but it wasn't like that was my thing yet. It was like, okay, I wasn't sure what I wanted, and I thought, well, a lawyer would be great, because getting all the education, I was getting straight A's, and at that point, and then when he passed away, at that point, I'm like, no, I knew I wanted to be a cop. And my sister was an explorer. She was 2 years older than I. So she wanted to be the cop at first, and then all of a sudden, because she was the explorer and everything, and then she's like, no. And then I'm like, I'm going to be the explorer. So yeah, so it's kind of funny.
So of your siblings, are you the only one who went into law enforcement?
Mm-hmm. My brother, he wanted to, but it didn't happen. But he was a Marine, and then now he's like does something for the Army or Reserves or something. So
what year did you start as a police officer?
In 1992, I was in the academy, and then 93, I was at Santa Monica. So like actually, 91, 92 is when I actually started going to the academy, and then I went for Santa Monica College for a year, and then after that, I went to Santa Monica. I think it was 93, 94, and then started with Santa Monica. I was 21 when I started, so I was young. And I look back now, I'm like, God, I was really young. I look at these 21-year-olds, I'm like, they look like they're 18 years old. Oh my God.
When you have those laps around the sun, you look back, you go, did I really look that young at 21?
Like,
no wonder when you're a fresh out of the academy rookie, people look at you like, who the hell are you?
Exactly. Why are you telling me to do that? Like, oh God. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
And you did how many years?
15 altogether.
Now, we're going to get into it, but you got shot roughly midway through then your career.
Yes.
Tell me about that incident.
So on 4th of July of 2000, I was on the Santa Monica Pier, and we got called to Santa Monica Pier for 2 guys wanted for murder. And so what happened was 2 officers get down there, they catch the first guy, and he ended up having 2 guns on him. They arrested him, and then all of a sudden the second guy ran, and they thought he went to the arcade. So at that point, we're all setting up everything. And my old partner came up and said, "Hey, Cristina, help me cover the back." But what's funny is my sergeant at the time, when they were dealing with the first guy, I guess some bullets fell out of his pocket. So since he was involved in a murder, my sergeant's like, "Cristina, you," and he looks at this other female officer and he goes, "You two, watch the bullets." While everyone else, he's probationers, everybody else, "You guys come with me." And I'm like looking at him like, "We're not on probation. We've been here forever." Like, what the heck? And we're so pissed. And so at that point, we're like, whatever. So we're twiddling our thumbs looking at these stupid bullets, listening to everything going on. And my old partner sees me. He's like, "Hey, Cristina, can you help me cover the back?" And I'm looking around, I see this other officer and I go, "Hey, can you cover the bullets?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So as soon as it does that, my partner and I go to the back, and that other female officer looks at me like, "That's messed up." I'm like, "I'm going to go." So
see ya.
I know, right? I'm like, "Oh, I should have listened." So at that point, we go to the back. There's a commotion. We think one guy is jumping over a fence. It's him, and it's not. So we stop him for a little bit. Then all of a sudden we turn around, and there's a bunch of people around the back of the arcade because it's 4th of July, early morning, not that night of 4th of July. So it was like 1:30 in the morning. So
it would have been the morning from the 3rd, not.
It was early morning of 4th of July. So it actually was like 1:30 in the morning, 4th of July.
Right. Yeah. So what I was getting at is you're coming from the night of the 3rd, not like the whole 4th of July festivities and ending the night.
Yes.
Okay.
So everyone kind of gets there early for some reason and on the pier. So all of a sudden, my partner and I see a commotion in the back of the arcade. So we think it's our officers and they're dealing with him. But what they were doing, we didn't know until later, they were retreating out of the arcade because the guy was coming out with a hostage. So, and we never saw him because there were so many people. So at that point, my partner and I start running through the crowd, heading towards the officers. And next thing you know, we hear all these bullets passing by. And I literally could hear them whizzing by my head. I'm like, "Where is this guy?" And I couldn't see him. And so next thing you know, I feel something hit my arm. And at that point, I'm like, "It's just a graze." I mean, I knew I got hit.
With all of the noise and stuff going on, you say you could tell that there were bullets going by. Were you hearing the gunfire too?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know where it was coming from.
Got it.
And so, but I could literally just feel, and it was so weird how you almost get like a tunnel vision because you almost like don't even know. It's like slow motion, but you can literally hear and the whizzing, and I don't know how to explain it, but at that point when I felt the thing hit my arm or the bullet hit my arm, my gosh, it's just a graze. But I felt like someone hit me with a baseball bat full force in my arm. So I know there was, it was something hit me.
You got hit in the upper arm?
It fractured my humerus, and then it ricocheted down the bone and shattered my radius. So it did a complete U-turn, which thank God it did, because if it would have gone through the under part of my armpit, that area is not covered by your vest. So I was very lucky. It was definitely a miracle. And my partner's like, "Cristina, you've been hit." I'm like, "No, I'm good." He's like, "No, look at your arm." And it's just hanging. I'm like, "Yeah, I guess not." But I'm right-handed. So I still have my gun in my hand. I was still standing up. It's still going on. So it wasn't like, everything stopped. And
time out, guys.
I know, right? Like, I gotta go. And I don't even remember being on the air saying, "Hey, officer shot, officer down." And I don't remember none of that happening. So I don't even know if they even knew I got shot. So then at that point, everyone, was trying to get me out of there. And so all of a sudden, I remember seeing my sergeant who told me to watch the bullets. He goes, "Cristina, get in the car." So we get in the back of the police car, and another officer grabs my arm.
He starts chewing you up for not watching the bullets.
Yelling at me like, "What are you doing?" So at that point, the other female officer, she I don't know if she put a tourniquet on me or not. 'Cause I don't remember a tourniquet. I think at that time we didn't have tourniquets. And I don't remember seeing blood, which is the weirdest thing. I think I just blocked it out. And when we got to the hospital, all I could hear was like other officers getting shot, officer down, officer down. So I know there's still more commotion. It was
how many total officers were shot?
3 officers, and then I think 2 civilians that got hurt, but no one got killed. But the adrenaline, just even hearing that, I was just like, "Oh my God." But that drive from Santa Monica Pier to UCLA was the longest drive, it seemed like. And the bumps on every single thing, I was like, "Oh my God." And then my adrenaline was was going away. So I could feel everything. And then all of a sudden we got to the hospital. They weren't ready for us. So no one called them. No one told them that, hey, an officer was shot getting into the hospital. So we literally got out of the police car, started walking, didn't even get on a gurney or anything, started walking to the back of the front door of the emergency. I see my cousin. She's a candy striper. She's walking out as I'm walking in, and I see her, and she's like, Cristina. I'm like, God, you look really pale. And I remember passing out, and that was it. And then I wake up. Now I'm on the table, and I see all the commotion, and I remember I was wearing a Victoria's Secret bra, which is kind of funny. I don't know why I remember this, but I'm like, don't cut the bra. It's like a $50 bra. So of course,
things are expensive.
Yeah, they are. So I was like, they're laughing. And so I'm like, I'm never coming to this hospital again. Never bring any patients or any of our suspects here. I'm like, forget this. I was so embarrassed. And so they gave me 2 doses of morphine. I never cried because I thought as a female officer, I don't want to show them my weak spot. Like I'm gonna be tough. And when my mom came, I also didn't want her to see me that I was in pain. So, cause she already had that one call with my dad. And she also had another door knock with me. We'll talk about that one later, but I got hit by a DUI driver. Oh. So she's had a few door knocks. And so I know that I didn't want her to be more concerned. So
real quick though, was your dad killed in the line of duty?
No, he was killed after he retired.
Oh,
and
okay.
He was killed in Santa Monica, and it was a different situation. They at first they thought he was set up, and I still think he was set up. But they're trying to say that they caught the guy. It was an accident. No, there's more to that whole thing, but that's another story.
So you're in the hospital. Yeah. Your mom's now at the hospital, yes. And you're trying to hold it together so she doesn't freak out.
And so she comes in and she tells the doctor, because the doctor tells her they're going to take my arm. So my mom's like, try to save it, do whatever you can, whether she can use it or not.
Had they told you this yet?
No. Because I was totally out of it. If they probably did, I probably wouldn't remember.
Right.
And so next thing I know is I'm in surgery. Oh, I remember another officer comes, our detective, and he starts asking me questions about everything. And he goes, Cristina, it's so funny. He goes, out of all the officers, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to talk to Cristina. She's going to be crying. It's going to be really hard, and he's going to be emotional. He goes, you're laughing. You're like nothing. And I was like, no, it was something, but I was also on morphine.
Yeah.
I think that
a
really
whole
helped.
Bunch of meds.
I go, I think that helped. He goes, no, but really, he goes, he talked to other officers, and he goes, they were kind of wuss. The other one, no one of them was kind of a wuss. And he was kind of complaining about everything. I'm like laughing. I'm like, well, I was just trying to be tough. And I go, believe me, it was hurting. And then after that, I remember being in surgery. I was in there probably 13, 14 hours. And I was face down. So I guess I got a reaction from the anesthesia. So my eyes, I guess everything was really swollen when I got out of there. So when I went into the recovery,
did they have to have you face down for the surgery?
Yeah, because it's all on the back of the arm. So they put plates and pins in it. They couldn't do anything for my radius. I woke up partially paralyzed. So basically when I woke up, they're like, I'm sorry, you're not going to use your arm again. We tried to do whatever we could, but you're probably going to be limited. So, and then my mom saw my face. My friends are like, they thought I got shot in the face because it was so messed up. Thank God I didn't see it because I didn't look in the mirror that day. But they all ran, like one friend ran out of the room like, what the heck? I'm like, is it that bad? I'm like, oh my God. I realized it's probably better not to see it. And then I was in there for a week. And I will say that I don't remember too much other than because I was on morphine so much, but there was a lot of flowers in my room when I woke up, and it smelled like a flower shop, and I remember people walking by my room, peeking, going, oh my God, it smells like a flower shop in here. And I didn't realize how strong that smell was, because when you're in the room, right, it's like no big deal. But when I finally was able to start walking and I got out of the room, like, oh my God, it smells so bad in there. I'm like giving my flowers away. I'm like, I don't ever want to see flowers again, because it was so bad. But it was so nice to see a stack of letters from people, cards, and in the community and fellow officers, and just everyone just coming together, saying, hey, we're thinking about you, we're concerned about you. What's funny is they didn't put my name on the hospital. We have an alias. Right. So my friends were all calling thinking I died because no one could find me. And so I was like, oh, great. Which caused problems later on with work comp, because they had me under Melissa, I think it was Melissa Kahn or something. I don't look, like a Melissa Kahn. So, but I look back and things are so different back then to how they are now. There's a lot more support now. Back then there wasn't as much. It was not the social media platform. It wasn't like people knew I was in there. After the fact. With social media now, you have officers who get shot or get hurt, and people are immediately contacting them, giving them the support, whether, a phone call or whether on social media, like, hey, what do you need? Do you need anything? And continuing that contact. I didn't have that. As soon as I got out of the hospital and I lived in the city, I probably had 2 officers come visit me from my department. And I know I needed them the most at that time, and at the time I was dealing with a lot of more personal stuff, my family, just like kind of, a separation with that. My ex-fiance and I broke up completely, and it was just one thing after another. And I finally said, okay, God, give me a sign, because this is a tough time. And I remember reading the Bible. I remember reading scripture. And I remember this one scripture, Jeremiah 29:11. The basically said God has a plan for us, and it's not for us to understand right now. In so many words, I'm short phrasing it, but it really hit me. And I thought, okay, you know what? God's not going to give me more than I can handle. I can do this. I was focused at that time saying, I'm not going to end up my career with this. And so I was in the gym twice a day. I was going to Bible study. I was going to retreats. I was focusing on getting myself back together and getting my arm back. Cause I'm like, there's no way I'm going to let a doctor tell me I can't get my arm back. And so.
How long did you actually spend in the hospital?
A week. I was in there a week.
And coming out of the hospital, what were the doctors telling you as far as the future of your arm?
Well, I went to get 2 other consultations from Curlin and Job, who deal with the leaguers, and all of them kept saying, there's no way you're going back. You're not going to get your arm back. You're not. And I had this contraption that looked like Freddy Krueger. And it looked awful. I'm like, oh my God, my arm's going to be like that for the rest of my life. So I'm like, nope, not going to happen. So they're like, you're going to be partially paralyzed. You had nerve damage. You're not going to straighten it. You're not going to be able to bend it all the way. So just kind of figure out a position you want it, because that's where it's going to be. I'm like, nope, not going to do that. So I was doing research. I did Henry Mayo, or the Mayo Clinic, they can replace radio heads. And so I was looking into all this stuff, and then I just kept doing running, working out. I would work out 2-3 in the morning at 24-hour fitness when no one was there with this contraption on my arm, because I was embarrassed. I'm like, I look like a freaking robot, you know?
Was it just all the traction external to hold your arm in place?
Yeah, it was like this case, almost like a cast, but of plastic. It had this metal rod on the side to adjust it so you can keep stretching it. And then I had these little cranes that would hold my fingers open. So, because I couldn't hold, I can close it, I just couldn't open it. So within time, the nerves are regenerating. So when I was running, I really tell people, if you're injured and you have a nerve injury, run, because you're going to circulate everything. And I felt like my hands were on fire. I felt like bees were stinging it, or like needles. It was crazy, but it was that nerve regenerating. So from July to Thanksgiving, I opened my hand, and within a year and a month later, I was back to work full time.
Wow.
Granted, I still had pain, which I didn't tell them. I still was limited because I can't supinate or pronate all the way. I can't.
Still to today.
This is all I can do. I can't completely rotate my wrist. And I can't touch my shoulder, but I was able to, I couldn't do this, supination. So I couldn't really manipulate the shotgun rifle this way, but I had to compensate. I could still shoot it. So it was just a lot more different ways of dealing with it. What
about actual grip strength?
Grip, I'm fine. Yeah, grip. At first I didn't have the grip strength because I couldn't grab anything, and hold it. But with time, I started getting it. And I sometimes can drop things now and then still today. And that's now with everything else. And that's even with my right hand. But I was able to do everything. I had a trainer. I had the city hire me a personal trainer, because I was like, no, I'm going to the gym. I want to know what I'm doing. I want to get back to work. And if it wasn't for that trainer helping me, I don't think I would have been back to work as soon as I did.
Well, at that time, what kind of input were you getting from the city? Were they pretty much trying to go down a path of wanting to write you off?
Yeah.
Or were they supportive of you, like, no, I want to get back to work?
Well, first I remember dealing with one doctor, and he was ready to sign me off saying, you're going to have to retire. I'm like, no. I go, what do I need to do to get back? And I go, and I think I also kind of messed up myself too, because I did come back, and I think a lot of officers, this is the biggest problem. A lot of officers get hurt and they get told, okay, don't be one of those, milk the system. It's not about milking the system. Is if you're injured and you have to rehab, take that time to rehab, mentally and physically, but definitely physically. And most officers don't. They rush back and they injure themselves more, or in the future will have more injuries on that injury because they didn't let it heal properly. And I think also mentally, depending what kind of injury it is or what kind of trauma it was, a lot of men and women do not go get help mentally because they think, okay, I got it. And I think that's when we got to start changing things and telling officers, look, if you're injured, it doesn't matter if you're brand new on the job or you're 20 years on the job, make sure you take the time. If you have a whole year, take the whole year. If you want 6 months, fine, take 6 months, or kind of spread it out. But make sure you get the proper rehab to get your arm or whatever injury you have, body part rehabbed. Because if not, you're going to regret it later, because it's going to affect you later on with everything.
How long were you off work?
I was off work for that year and a month, but I had to use a whole month of sick time, because if not, I would have been retired for that 1 year, because you only have a year in work comp. So I used a whole month of sick time, went back to work, and then I had 2 more surgeries a year later, for my carpal tunnel, cubital tunnel that they thought I had, which I ended up having neck and back injuries. So from the car accident and from other things, which also contributed to the problems in my arms. But I try to rehab as fast as I can, because I was determined. But I still have issues now. But it is what it is.
You mentioned something earlier where you weren't even sure if radio traffic was going out. Did you ever go back and listen to the radio traffic? Did you even put out on the radio that you had been shot?
I don't think I ever put out. And I have the tape at home, and it's been so long since I've actually last listened to it, and I probably should go listen to it. So I don't remember ever going on the radio saying anything about myself being shot. So it's kind of funny, the mentality, like most officers, yeah, you're right. They'd go jump on the radio, officer down, or officer's been shot. I don't think I did. I know maybe my partner did or someone else, but I don't remember ever doing that. So.
And you mentioned something where when you were in the middle of it or early into it, and you said, God, give me a sign, and you started reading the Bible. Were you going down a path of taking your own life? Was it to that extreme?
I think that, I would never take my life, and, especially with all the life, almost near death experiences I've had, I think there's a reason for God having me here. But, I think all of us in one moment in our lives are like, why are we here? What's going on? And I thank God I have God in my life. I did. And I think a lot of people who don't have a structure or have something that they look up to go that path. But I remember I was just so discouraged, so disappointed, just going through so much. I'm like, God, I this is a lot. What can I do? What can you help me? And that was the way that it was him talking to me. And I focused on that, the negative and positive, and turned it around so that I'm like, no, I'm getting back to work. I'm going to focus on my negative attention, any kind of depression, any kind of anxiety, anything that I'm going through right now to snap out of it. And I luckily don't drink a lot. I'll drink occasionally here and there just with my friends, but I'm not.
Yes, we're sitting in wine country.
Right? I know, right? Exactly. I'm toasting every single Instagram, but I've never really been a big drinker. I don't drink at home by myself. I'm not that person. I don't do drugs. Even when I had pain meds, I would do it from the very beginning after surgery and then take myself off of it. I'm not into pain meds. I like the STEM machine that they had for me, which was like a stimulation machine. That thing is awesome. That really can distract your pain. And I would go get massages. I would go get, jacuzzis or things like that. Other ways of dealing with my pain than dealing with pain in, like medicine.
How much of your treatment was driven by your desire or your pushing as opposed to, were all of the doctors that you saw related to the city, or did you have to go find doctors yourself?
They're all related to the city. I actually had one doctor that I went by myself, like an acupuncturist. I think, and even when I asked my doctor about the Mayo Clinic doing that radial head replacement, he told me later on, he's like, no, he goes, what you've gotten is a miracle. And he goes, if we go back in and replace that radial head, the chances are you might not even get what you've gotten right now. So it's better to leave what you have and just, not do that. He goes, but you're right. That would have been a great solution at the time when you first started. But right now where you're at, it's just leave what you have. But I think that if most officers realize, okay, if you're going to get back, if you're going to have an injury, the city doesn't want to cover certain things, a lot of stuff is not covered by work comp, then go out of the way, go look for some treatments out there that are not covered by work comp, but that you can take care of it yourself if you can afford it, and get those treatments. Because if you really want to go back to work and you really are determined to get yourself back to 100%, or close to 100%, then go do yourself a favor and take care of yourself. Don't wait for the city to do it. Everything the city does right now, even if you have future medical, you don't get future medical because realistically they can deny every single treatment or deny it or delay it in any way possible. So to me that doesn't help. Like, so when people say, oh, sign up for future medical, no, I'm not going to sign up for future medical because they're not helping me. It's been, for me now, I've retired in 2008. I'm still dealing with the work comp system. I'm still dealing with, like, I had to get my own neck and surgery paid for when I had my surgery because they kept trying to deny it. And even though it was presumptive, even though they knew I got hit by a car years ago, even though all the different things I've been through, they denied it initially. So when I paid for it, finally, when my lawyers kept fighting it, saying, no, this is presumptive. She deserves to get those neck and back injuries taken care of. Well, now they're saying they're going to cover them. But okay, back then I already paid for it. So I tell people, like, you know what? Make sure you tell those hospitals to put a lien on those cases because that way they can get that money back from the city when it does get back. Because they shouldn't be off the hook for those kind of things. And now I'm dealing with trying to get another neck and back surgery because the disc above and below the disc I have surgery on is deteriorating. My back, I have sciatic, and they just have delayed so much of my stuff that I feel like my injuries are getting worse rather than better. And that's the thing I tell people, go and do your own thing. Go get your own treatments. Because they're not going to do it in a timely fashion. So
the shooting occurred July 3rd, what year?
July 4th,
July
2000.
4th. And then you were back to work, what?
August of 2001. Yeah, 2001. 2001.
So a little over a year. Were you on light duty leading up to that?
I was on light duty for probably a few months, and then I went back on patrol.
Okay. And from the time you actually got back to full duty, what caused an early retirement? Was it your choice, or was it battles related to the injuries?
Well, I went back to work 8 years for another 8 years after my shooting. So I was there for another 8 years. So, like I said, total of 15 years on the job, but 8 years. So within those 8 years, I had another surgery for, like I said, 2 more surgeries for my arms. And then in 2006, I was on Survivor. And I was full time on the job, even though the city keeps on using that against me. They're like, "Oh, you're on a Survivor. You're on a show with
We're going to get to that.
I know, right? And I'm like, whatever. To the point when it comes to the city dealing with, they try to find anything possible to try to deny your cases or to try to make it very hard for you. I'm like, no, I was full time on the job when I did that. And my thing is, there's people that do CrossFit that after they recover and they come back to the job, they're doing CrossFit. So it's the same thing. Like you're still getting your body, body in motion stays in motion. Plus, reality shows, it's TV.
Right.
All the stuff is just played up. So my thing is, I went back, and then 2 years after that, I've always had pain since the day I was shot to even today, where I have, the aches, the pains, it's not 100%. It's never going to be 100% because I have a shattered bone on the bottom and a fractured one on top. I have nerve injuries. It's just accumulation of stuff. I'm going to have arthritis. I'm going to have other problems, but my other problems too, my other injuries, neck and back and my knees. But the thing is, when I asked to see a doctor in 2007, because it was December of 2007, I said, I'm having numbness in my hands. I'm dropping things. Can I see a doctor? At that point, they're like, you're going to have to either retire or go back to work and not get paid. I'm like, how am I going to afford not to get paid? So that doesn't make sense. So they pretty much forced me to retire. Instead of giving me push me to see my doctor right away, they delayed it. So my 4850 time was done. And at that point now I had to make a choice, either retire or, like I said, work without pay. And at that point I had to retire. So I wasn't ready to do that. But looking back now, it was probably the best decision I ever made because it's opened up other doors, and we'll discuss that, I guess, in a minute with my, my future ideas and what's happening, and how it's going to help with that.
I definitely want to circle back to your actual retirement and what you did afterwards, but you mentioned it. So you ended up on Survivor while you were still an active duty police officer. How'd that come about?
Well, I knew a lady who was a casting director, and she calls me out of the blue, knowing my story that I was, hit by a car, shot, had a few survival type stories. And she's like, "You're a true survivor. I think you'd be great for the show." I'm like, "No, I'm good." And she's like, "No, really, we need you." And this was the time they needed a Hispanic girl for that season because it was a split up in races. It was the Cook Islands. It was season 13. And so I didn't know that at the time. And so I'm like, well, let me talk to my chief. And I was sure he was going to say no. Yeah. I was really trying to get out of it because I'm like, I'm not going to eat bugs, But I was like nervous because I've never really watched the show. But I'm like, oh, it's a survival show. You just got to live on the land kind of thing. Didn't know too much about it. And so, but I'm like, I don't want to eat bugs. So my boss, my chief's like, Cristina, that'd be great PR. That'd be a great way for you to win $1 million. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't get out of this now. So it was, to me, it was exciting at that point because now I had his backing. And then, I did it, not knowing what I was doing. And I was on there for 15 days out of 39 days. I probably should have read everything they tell you, because I probably would have known about the idols. I probably would have known about a lot of things. But at the same time, the game is about backstabbing, conniving, trying to win. And that's, for me, I was working my last year on the job, school resource officer. So I was teaching kids about morals, values, ethics. So being on that show, it's everything the opposite. So I couldn't play the game they wanted me to play it. So I'm glad I played it the way I did because when I went back to the school, the kids are like, they were bullies to you. They were so mean to you. And so now these kids understood here, I'm a cop here, I could take care of myself, but they were still a way people can bully you and do things to you. And it's just not cool. And so it gave me that connection with the kids. I'm glad I had that 15 minutes of fame to bring that closeness with me and those kids and also to do all the charities I do now.
So, and fast forwarding, you still use that connection to Survivor to further your charity work today.
Yes.
And you're coming up on almost 10 years removed from it?
From Survivor? Survivor was in 2006.
Okay.
So it's been a long time. But yeah, we still do things. We have like a reality family, I call it, because we have people from Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, from Bachelor, Bachelorette, all these different reality shows. Naked and Afraid. that we all come together, and a lot of them are cops, a lot of them are firemen, first responders. So it's really nice because they have another family within a family. So, leaving the police department, I had a hard time, kind of comprehending, okay, where's my identity? Because all my life, I wanted to be that cop. And now I'm like going a different path. And I wasn't ready for that. I mean, it was I was still ready to go, 5, 6 more years or 7 more years in law enforcement. And, but being in that reality family, it kind of brought me together with another group of people, still some in my element, but just another group of people that really made me feel like I was part of something.
Did you get, when you look at your career and kind of divide it into, pre-shooting, post-shooting, did you get a lot of support coming back to work? Because I know you mentioned while you were out, only 2 officers stopped by.
Yeah. What
was it like when you got back on the road? Were you kind of looked at, I don't want to say differently, but did you get the support in your mind to come back?
You know what? There are some officers that I'm really good friends with that I'm still friends with today. And there's some there that I thought were just, when I came back, I'm like, okay, I did my thing. I worked hard. I came back, that I was so encouraged. Okay, they're going to appreciate me. And like, hey, she worked hard. She's back. And I never thought, okay, there would be such not just, we'll say discrimination, but I think if I was a guy, things would have been a little different. And I'm sorry to say that. And because I've never thought I'd be that person, but it is true. When I came back, because I wasn't one of the guys, it wasn't like, oh, she's a cop. She's a male cop. She got shot. Or she has a story. She has a scar. Like my scar is behind my arm. My doctor said, I know you don't want your scar shown. I'm like, yeah, I don't. And so it's hidden behind, but you can still see it if you look for it. I wasn't looking at that. Like, I don't need it. I don't care. It's like, I just want to get back to work. I want to do my job. So when I went back, I felt like it wasn't that, hey, Cristina, like a warm appreciation being back. It was very like, hey, okay. Like I just came back from vacation or something. And like there was the ones that were good. And then the ones that I just felt there's like some talk behind, like closed doors kind of thing. And I found out later on that there was a lot of talk and a lot of things like there was a Monday morning quarterback kind of talk that I heard from other people. And it was funny because one records clerk came up to me, and I'm usually the jolly one, happy, go lucky. And she's like, Cristina, I can see that you came back and you have a discouragement. And she goes, don't let it get to you. And she goes, I know these guys talk and I hear them because, she's a records clerk. Right. She hears everything. Yeah. And they're jealous. They're jealous that you went through a traumatic injury. You went through something that most guys sometimes crave getting into something like that, a shooting or something, but they want stories and you have that story. But you're a female, so it's not like you're that one. So just take it in a different way. Take it, you recovered from something that most people wouldn't have recovered from. They don't understand your path. They don't understand what you went through to get here. But you do. And you know what? Enjoy what you did. Be proud of what you did, and just go and do your job. And
I'm sure in the middle of this, then leaving at the department's approval to go be on Survivor probably didn't help things.
Oh no. You had the people that were talking, oh, she wants to be an actress. She wants to do, I'm like, it's a freaking reality show. I was trying to get off the damn thing, And so, you have the haters. I realize in this job and any job, you have haters. You have people that don't want to see you get ahead, whether you're a guy or a girl. There are going to be those haters, but I also realize in life, those same haters are the ones that are going to ask you, hey, how do I get on that? So because I remember that happening. So I just look at it as especially now in my life and now that I'm 51, I look at life so differently. I don't care about a lot of the things that I would have heard back then that would have really bothered me. Now I just laugh at them like, well, you know what? I'm not worried about them. They're not paying my bills. They're not taking care of me. They're not taking the chance or, get out of the way to call me and say, hey, Cristina, do you need anything? Are you okay? I look at everything that I went through in my past to where I'm today to know that I'm not going to do what I've gone through to somebody else. So if I can help somebody, whether one person or 2 people, not go through what I went through, I will make sure I do that. And I'm constantly reaching out to officers. I met an officer on Instagram who got shot in the arm. And him and I are great friends. And he's a young kid. And I told him, don't be discouraged. You're going to get your arm back. Just keep fighting. And I give advice as much as I possibly can. And I say, if you need a civil lawyer, get a civil lawyer. You need a work comp lawyer, get a work comp lawyer. But make sure that you realize there's 2 different things. That work comp lawyer is not going to civilly go after them. You have to get a civil lawyer. So I've helped a lot of people, and I thank God. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know a lot of those things. But I do know you have to be your own advocate, even when you do have a lawyer. Because they have how many cases, and you're one of their many cases. So if you don't get on top of it, you're going to be just mixed in with everyone else, and then you're going to be calling them, not them calling you.
Well, and the sad thing too is unfortunately, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you just sit back and think my lawyer is going to handle everything, it's very easy to fall to the back of the line and get forgotten about.
Exactly. And that's what happens. I mean, I'm so pissed off at all the things. Like I'm the one I've like sent letters to the city council. I've been pushing for a lot of things, and I wish I would have done things even way back when I now know what I know now back then, because my first lawyer, he died of cancer. So I didn't even know he had cancer when he had my case. So there's things he was telling me not to do, not to worry about. But I think also he was kind of associated with the city in a lot of ways. So I think a lot of these lawyers, they have connections with the cities because they get their clients from the city. So, I think there's like a balance, but at the same time, you got to push things, because if you don't push it, then they're going to be like, whatever, like, okay, we'll do whatever we can to an extent. But I know that they probably get pissed off at me because I do call them. I now realize, don't just call them, email them. So you have a paper trail, because I know so many lawyers that are lazy, that are not going to do anything, that basically they'll like, oh, we'll call you when we call you. No, I'm one of your clients. Either you take my case and you tell me you want me to, like you're telling me what you're doing, or don't take my case and I'll go somewhere else. But I had one lawyer tell me, oh, Cristina, I am so busy. I have other cases too. I'm like, I understand that. But if you don't want my case, then I'm going to go. And he got so mad and he tried to put a lien on my case saying it was for $1 million. I'm like, you said my case wasn't worth $1 million. So why are you putting a lien on $1 million? And it's a work comp case. And my other lawyer's like, you can't do that. It's your case is only worth so much, and we only get a certain percentage. But if you can prove that he didn't really do his job, then the judge will see all that, and they'll separate whatever the percentage is. But it's funny how if we don't get on top of those things, or we don't get on top of these lawyers, even though they'll hate us or whatever, like you got to be your own advocate. You got to be on top of your case, because my case has drug on like since 2008 to 2022, and it's ridiculous. It shouldn't be drug on that long.
It's sad that you've had to learn a lot of this by going through it, and it's great that you're moving it forward to help those. But at the end of the day, it does fall a lot on our agencies to be our best advocate. Yeah. And oftentimes, like you said, you've got people behind the scenes who are like, we just need to cut the dollars and cents and let's get rid of this person. And that's not necessarily the best way to deal with it. So you have to be your own advocate.
Yep.
When you started approaching that point of where basically the city told you, hey, you can either retire or work without pay. Well, I want to go take one step backwards real quick. Coming back to work, how was your mental health aspect after being shot?
You know what? It really didn't bother me back then. Because I really didn't, I was focused on getting my arm back. So I think majority of my mindset was getting physically back. And I don't think I really had time to think about my shooting, because I didn't let it get to me and like, okay, I could have been killed. Like that mentality. I was more of, okay, it was a shot. It was, it's an injury. I'm just gonna get back from it. It didn't start affecting me until later on, when all of a sudden, and even when I was on Survivor, because I had plenty of time to think. And I think that's the problem. When you have time to think and you're like without any other distractions, that's when you start focusing on those mental things. And that's when I started focusing on, wow, okay, I could have been killed. Oh, wow. What would have happened? Like I just seeing my mom and how she, like, I know it hit her, even though I wasn't crying during that time. I know that it really affected her and other family members. And I remember my sister and I talking, and she's like, you know what? And she gets me emotional. She was like, oh my God, I could have lost you. And then she gave me a big hug. And that, I think once she gave me that hug is when I broke down. But when I was on Survivor, I remember sitting there thinking all these things. And I'm like, playing things back then now, because now I was going through the whole thing because I had time to think about it. And I think that's when you start getting emotional.
It's amazing what happens when you're stuck on an island with nothing to do.
Oh yeah, I'm starving. But yeah, I think that's when I started getting very emotional. And I think that's
Wait a minute, off camera, they aren't feeding you steak and lobster?
Right? No, I thought so. I'm like, I'll get a Snicker bar. No. Oh no, there were no bathrooms or no nothing, no food, no nothing. So I remember sitting there going, wow, and taking it fully 100% in. And I also think that was probably another thing in the game that they want you to go through, because they want to get people's emotions. And I think at that point I got more emotional, because I remember one scene they have, they were showing me crying in one of the scenes, like getting emotional, but they didn't show the fact that they edited. They were talking to me off camera, like to the side about my dad. And
kind of winding you up and then hitting record.
Yes, exactly. So they can edit it any way they want. So when I saw that part of me being emotional, like it wasn't the same time of what they were trying to portray it as. It was in a time when they asked me about my dad and about his murder and about losing my dad. But I also thought during that time is when I started thinking about my own shooting and about certain things in my life and putting my life in perspective. And even now it's like, I look back, I remember one 4th of July, I was driving by myself and I've never broken down where it just hit me. But when I was on 4th of July driving and I was by myself, I just started crying for no reason. I'm like, just burst out crying. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And I know all of us go through PTSD in different ways. Some kind of post-traumatic trauma situation. And I think that was my time. And there's times that, when my mind starts wandering and I can't sleep or I get fidgety or you just go through so many different things. And I've never spoken to a psychologist, never had a counselor talk to me. The city never provided me with one. And what I've asked my doctors recently is like, I would like to go talk to somebody about everything I've gone through in my life. From, because you and I have seen things that most people shouldn't be seeing and been through so many things. And I'm still getting denied getting that psychological treatment. So I look at that, I'm like, it's like I almost feel like they wish or they're hoping that officers are going to take that chance of not getting help and then go do something, drastic. Like you say, some people will kill themselves or do that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking I'm not one of those, but they don't want you to get help. They want you to have a meltdown. They want you to have anxiety. They want you to have depression because they also want you to rely on pain meds. They don't want you to get better because it's going to cost them more when you're getting better. So I really look at everything and I tell officers, go get help. If you need to get help, go get it. It's not a weakness, because most officers thought that was a sign of weakness when you go talk to somebody. No, go get help. Go talk to somebody. Get it off your chest. And, if that's one thing I can advise officers is that's the one thing, the most important thing.
I asked about your mental health because I've heard it put in a great way in that obviously first responders and military members deal with traumatic stuff. And there is the post-traumatic stress that comes from that. The one big difference though is for a lot of the military people, something tragic happens, you come back home and you're really not going to encounter a situation similar to that, an IED or something to that effect. You drove by the Santa Monica Pier every day of work. You can see that anytime so that you're always reliving that trauma. Did you note it? Did you ever have a moment where you realized, oh, there's the pier and had a let's call it a flashback or something?
There's times I've driven down there and by myself and I've looked at everything and kind of, like I said, realize I'm very grateful I'm here, and that no one else got, killed or no one got killed that night. I looked there, I just try to, because I used to live going to the pier with my dad. What's weird, okay, this is what's weird. I had a dream back when I was 21, I was a brand new officer, and in my dream, I was shot on the Santa Monica Pier. And this, my mom and my best friend can back it up. And
this is before you were shot?
Yeah. This would be almost like
Whoa.
So in my dream, but it was a different situation. It was a domestic violence situation. And I'm dealing with this guy and he had a knife in his hand and the knife turns into a gun and it blows off half my head in my dream. And I remember seeing a light and I remember saying, oh my God, and I'm crying in my dream. I'm like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And I hear my dad's voice and it says, don't worry, it's not your time. He kept saying it over and over. And I woke up crying, like literally, I've never woke up in my life with tears in my eyes. So it really bothered me. I couldn't go back to sleep. Called my mom that day, called my best friend, the next morning and told them what happened. My mom says, maybe it's just your dad warning you. Just take into consideration, just always be careful. My best friend, same thing. So years later when I got shot, my best friend comes in my room and she's like, do you remember that dream you told me? I'm like, oh my God. I go, yes, I remember the dream. And I'm like, she goes, maybe it was your dad. Maybe your dad helped you. That's why I went that, like bullet went and made the U-turn or whatever. I go, yeah, I believe that my dad and God protected me. There's definitely something that protected me that night. But it was the weirdest thing. So when I see that pier, like my dad used to take us there, every Sunday we go to the beach. And so I didn't want that pier to be my, what do you call it? Almost like, what's the word I want to use?
Your kryptonite.
Yes. And that's exactly it. And I try to look at it as the good things of my dad, focus on the positive things. So
you've now come to that bridge, 2008, you're going to walk away from law enforcement, obviously earlier than you were probably planning on it. Did you have prospects already at that time of what you were going to transition to? Did you know what your plan was for the future, or was it literally, oh, there's the finish line and Now what do I do?
No, I didn't have any plans. I know at the time I was, my ex husband, he had proposed to me months later, but he had talked to me like, there's decisions you need to make. If you want to have kids and like, if you want to get married, think about those things. Cause if you are injured, if you go back to work, what if something happens and then you can never have kids? So it was, at least my future was getting married, having kids, and then starting that part of my life. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And I think also because of the injuries I've had caused a lot of my, the miscarriages and stuff like that. So I used a lot of that time when I retired to a lot of the charity events I went to, which I actually went to Diego Garcia and a few U.S. Armed Force Entertainment things, charities that they sent us to, which was amazing. So I had some opportunities since I retired to do some amazing things, and that I probably would never have done if I was still a cop.
Did you have to make those opportunities happen, or did people come looking for you?
People came looking for me. So I was all of a sudden getting these phone calls. Hey, Cristina, do you want to be part of this? Hey, Cristina, do you want to be part of that? But it was nothing to do with law enforcement. It was now dealing with survivor stuff, with the reality part of it. So I was like, oh, okay. And all these other ones were like, basically, hey, we'll fly you to this. We'll take you to this. You don't have to worry about paying anything. So I had no money. This is another thing. When you retire, and I found also from LAPD, my friend from LAPD, she's going through this, you don't get paid right away. So there's a time period where you're going to get very limited funds or none to the time when you actually get your retirement started, your pension. So I was dealing with a lot of financial stress during that time. Even though I was going to be engaged and all that stuff, I was dealing with all that financial stress. My friend who she's not married, she doesn't have a boyfriend, she's doing this all by herself, and she's stressing out right now because she could lose her home. She could lose a lot of things. And the department doesn't have hey, we'll help you. We'll make sure you have some financial, help when it comes to paying your bills or what. There's nothing like that out there. Although there are nonprofits now that are trying to help more officers that are injured with those kind of situations. But those are very hard to find, or they'll say they do it and a lot of them don't do it. So I really hope that those charities that are involved in helping officers injured that are basically saying that, hey, we're doing that, really do that, because these officers are going through not only their financial problems with those things, those strains, but now they're also dealing with mental stuff. I mean, I've seen my friend break down so much, and I see it in her face, like how she is so stressed, and that scares me because I'm like, I know the people that I have been friends with that have killed themselves because they've gone through less stuff stressful than what we've gone through. And I can only see that this could be that possibility of it can get to that point, even though we don't want to think that or not, whatever, it can get to that. And I know she wouldn't, because again, she's a strong girl, but a lot of people break. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human. Yes.
And we can only be pushed so far.
Yes.
And if you can't take care of yourself, can't take care of your family.
Yes.
That's a huge stressor.
Yep. And I look at the officers who have families, who don't have the second income coming in either. But they have now a whole slew of kids, and now how are they going to take care of themselves? So I can see the added stress put on their relationships, on their kids' relationships, just on everything. So they're putting more stress on themselves, or mentally and physically, because it does make you physically sick too. So I mean, I tell officers, if you need help, ask for help. But most officers, we don't. I know I'm one of them because I could do it myself. But no, realistically,
the last thing we want to do is ask for help.
Yes. And I see it all the time. And I mean, it's sad to say, but in any situation, whether it's even a job situation or off job situation where we're injured or maybe getting cancer or some kind of illness, most officers don't want to tell other people what they're going through because they want to be able to handle it themselves without getting other people stressed out about their stress. And I think that was one thing about being a cop. I didn't worry about any of my own personal stuff because I was worried about everyone else's. So when you're forced to now think about all your own stresses, it definitely can like weigh you down.
Silly question. Survivor. Did you have to audition for that?
No. Well, there's lots of people that do. So mine was backwards because since I got casted, and I hate people who get mad at me because I know when they run, they're trying for it. They're like, "Hugh, whatever." I'm not gonna say the word, but I had to go. I got casted. I put my video in, and then I did like everything basically backwards, but already knowing that I was casted. So other ones have to go through like filling in their application. We actually have to do a psychological test for that.
Really?
Because they want to see the personalities.
You're not going to go nuts.
I know, right?
Stuck on an island.
And there's people that have gone nuts on those islands. So they want to see that. They want to have the A and B personalities and see, the frictions.
I've had another guest who works in Hollywood as a screenwriter, and he talked about drama breeds ratings.
Yep.
It's
exactly.
And anybody who thinks a reality show is just a camera recording, it's all scripted.
Yes. Well, I know a lot of people go on there knowing that they're going to be on TV, so they even push out more of their drama, you know? So, I mean, like I said, if I would have known about the show, I probably would have not done it even more. But at the same time, I am glad I played it the way I did because I played it naturally. I didn't have all that other stuff because I already knew also I was going back to work. I wasn't going to continue in film. Like, I wanted to be a cop. I was still a cop. I was going to go back to be a cop. Most people that are on those reality shows, some of them don't have jobs. So this was their opening to other things. So yeah.
Did you get paid for that?
You do get paid. You get paid a few $1,000. I don't know how it is now, but you get paid $1,000 in an episode, and then you get paid for the finale. And then if you get voted out, you know, they send you away, and it was pretty awesome. I mean, I think when I got voted off and I got sent to Australia, that was the best part. Like, I loved it. Like, I was like everything.
So they told you had to go to Australia?
Yeah.
Or
because you can't go back home.
So it's to keep you secluded until the event was over. Because
there are people who bet on this stuff. You know, they're like, oh, that person got voted off. So your family can't even know you won or didn't win. You know, so when you come back, everyone thought I won. I'm like, just pretend I did. I'm like, smiling the whole time. Yeah.
So I guess if you're somebody who's independently wealthy, get on there, get voted off the first day, take a 30-day vacation.
Exactly. I mean, it was awesome. That was the best part of, like, God, I wish I got voted off first. I would have been in Australia the whole time. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I mean, both experiences were great. It really was.
Now, you've also worked as an advisor, though, on a movie.
Yes.
Did that come from that relationship?
No. Actually, one of my old partners, he was friends with the writer for Angel Eyes, and he was writing this the script, and he went on a ride along with me. So he's like, hey, Cristina. And at the time, I had light hair, and everyone used to tease me, like, you're like a J-Lo. And so he went on the ride along with me, asked me questions about being a female cop and about dating and about all these different things. And he used some of that in the movie. And so I got to meet Jennifer Lopez, was her consultant, showed her how to use a police car and basically stop the suspect and pull him on the car, you know, all that stuff. It was fun. And she was awesome. It was a great experience. And when I got shot, she actually sent me a picture of herself and saying, stay strong. And it was pretty amazing. And when I came back to go see her after I got shot, you know, she was so open arms and she was such a sweetheart. But that was basically before the whole reality stuff. Was
that not something, what I'm working towards, is that not something that you could have then turned into another career, being like an advisor in Hollywood?
Yeah, but at the time I didn't really know. I mean, I probably could have asked that one guy, but I didn't really know too many people in that field doing that stuff. And at the time after I retired, I was so, I guess, not focused on the police stuff anymore because I kind of was going through my own little stuff, you know, mentally, just trying to deal with retirement, dealing with what am I doing next, and then also dealing with, okay, I'm going to have a family, or possible family, you know, and I think it was just a lot more. I didn't really have a structure. I think if I tell officers too, have a structure, have something in place, or do something, a hobby that you love that can possibly bring you money later on or even now while you're on the job. Because that way, when you do transition out of there, it's an easier transition and you have some income coming in, you have a flow, you have mentally and physically, everything is kind of in place. You know, and, you know, if you're spiritually in place, it's like you have the whole package. So you ended up doing the charity work kind of almost right away, but almost seems like by accident, in the sense that they reached out to you and said, hey, do you want to help and go do this? They didn't really even know that you had actually come to your retirement time. No, well, I was doing charity events while I was on the job. Oh, okay. Not as many because I was working and it was like I had to kind of fit it around my schedule or take time off or whatever. It wasn't, but they were very different. The ones that I got offered after I left the job, those are the bigger ones, like the U.S. Armed Forces, and and those are amazing because those are like overseas. And so once they knew you had time to do it, then the bigger opportunities came. Yes. You ended up going to work for a law enforcement publication company. Yes. Mm-hmm. How'd that come about? So because of being involved in charities, I was also involved with Hollywood PAL and Hollenbeck PAL for LAPD. And one of the, I think it was Hollywood, my boss went there. PAL being Police Activities League? Yeah, Police Activities League, yes. And my boss is Mark Deach. He actually wrote the movie Fallen about officers killed in line of duty. So he was showing his movie, and also I found out he also does websites and apps. He owns 911 Media. So 911 Media does websites, apps, publications. They do all the websites for POAs, you know, like the they did our Santa Monica website. They did they do a bunch of different websites for associations, and then they also have the PORAC website. They also have the PORAC publication, Star News, you know, Star Shield. They have so many different publications. So he basically started talking. I told him I wanted to do a website. I wanted to do a documentary about injured officers. And we kind of had this long discussion. He's like, oh, that'd be great. I'll help you out. Then later on, a few months later, he's like, hey, would you want to work for me? I think it'd be great to be a liaison between the associations and the publications and websites. I'm like, sure. So I started doing that. And, one thing led to another. And I worked there for 2 years, like 2 years and a few months. And then just in January, I left it. And now I'm trying to work on my own app and try to get things done. And trying to focus on myself and, be a boss to myself.
So let's talk about the app. Explain to me what it's going to do. What's your vision for it?
Well, my vision is it's going to be a work comp app. It's going to be, the name I have for it is a CYA app, Cover Yourself app. It's basically a one-stop shop. It's for officers who are injured, starting from day one to the day they retire, and it'll cover everything dealing with their injuries. I don't want to say too much because I want to make sure that,
no, of course,
people don't try to take it, but it's basically going to be a place for them to help. So they get paid their mileage and parking, that they have resources, that they know that if they want treatments, there's going to be treatments available, whether work comp or not, that are covered. Resources with law firms, resources with maybe even jobs after they retire, that are openings. Even places that nonprofits can advertise in and say, hey, you know what, we have offers for you, whether jobs or we have financial help for you, or we can send you to events, or, because there's events. My friend owns a nonprofit called Leo Weekend. And they do events for officers that are killed, for their families, and then for officers that are injured. So they can come out and basically everything's paid for. So they have a hotel, different types of events for them and their family, and everyone interacts together. And it's such a great time because you're not really dealing with your injuries. You're dealing with everyone. You're having fun. You're talking. If you want to talk about your injury with another officer, you have that time to talk about it and decompress. Or the wives can talk to the wives. The kids can talk to the kids. So everyone's interacting and understanding they're all going through the same thing in some way or another. It's an amazing nonprofit. But my app will include all that in there. So I can have all those nonprofits advertise and say, look, this is what we do for you. And this is, if you want to come to us. So
for somebody who's got an idea of wanting to do their own app, what advice would you give from what you've already experienced in trying to design an app?
Well, I would say go and look around, but don't go to the ones that are going to be like from overseas. And they probably take your app or, but, find a really good person, a good company to work with, have an NDA, make sure they sign it. But even NDAs nowadays, people can steal anything. But, everyone has an idea. I think that, like Coca-Cola, there's Coca-Cola, the Diet Coke, there's Dr. Pepper. There's all these different sodas. Someone likes that one. Someone likes this one. So I can have an app and someone else can have an app, and that their app might be better or my app might be better because it covers other things. So I think don't be discouraged. Go find somebody that can help you and then just keep pushing. And I want my app to be where I have other officers that are injured are able to work with it. So I can hire them, hire firemen, hire first responders that are all dealing with the same thing in a different way and put input into it so that we have, information there that's from all different agencies from all around the world, so we can help them out in any way possible. And if there's something missing in it, we can add it, so it's a work in progress. It's, it's teamwork. It's not just about me. It's not just about making money. It's everyone's going to be making money. This app is going to help the officer make money, because they're going to get paid for their mileage and parking. They're going to get paid for other claims that they have for, like those accidental claims that they have, like AFLAC or whatever. So this is going to be a place that they make money, we make money. I can give money back because I'm all about giving money back to nonprofits, especially when it comes to officers injured or officers killed for their families. I think it's important that we help each other out. And I think that thin blue line sometimes is not what people think it is, because sometimes it could be us all working together, or it can be the officers that are working in a department, that department really isn't helping them. So I think people get a false sense of, oh, I'm going to have the backing when I leave, when realistically they're going to have the backing when they're on the job.
You walk out that door, you're gonna realize you're quickly forgotten by a large number of people from that agency.
Yes.
And whether you spent a year there or you spent 30 years there.
Exactly.
You're kind of out of sight, out of mind, unfortunately.
Yep.
You mentioned something earlier where they put you in the hospital under an alias, obviously for your protection, but it actually ended up almost kind of coming back to bite you, you said?
Because during that time with work comp, I was now dealing with getting my medical records from the hospital, but having to say, okay, I had an alias who was Melissa Khan. And during back then it was very different. It was so long ago, and that was 22 years ago. They don't have all the new stuff they have now. And I'm sure they've changed everything, but it was such a hard time trying to get my medical records and trying to get the names off Melissa Khan, saying, no, this is me. This, it was very difficult. There was a lot of problems with it.
So in wrapping it up, any advice you would give to somebody going through this right now? And I'd like you to focus on two sides of it. Somebody who's dealing with a workers' comp injury, what's some of the main things that they want to focus on from themselves? And then if you could, what do departments need to do better that they didn't do for you?
Okay. Well, for starters, for officers who are going through an injury, document everything, keep everything. Make sure you're your own advocate. So from day one to the day you go back to work, or even until you finish your case, have your paperwork, put it in a place, file, whatever, keep it in one place. Make sure you're in touch with all your doctors. Make sure you're in touch with your lawyer. Be your own advocate, and make sure that when you are injured, focus on yourself. Focus on getting better. Focus physically getting better and putting all your effort into it. And whether a doctor says you can't do something, put your mind to say it. You will. As much as you possibly can, because mind over matter, you will definitely, I look at it this way: you manifest it, you breathe it, you think it, you pray on it, it will come, and if it wasn't meant to be, then it wasn't meant to be. But if you can try to change that dynamic, then change it. Mentally, also put your mind in that mindset that if you want something and you can get it, you're going to get it. But also if your mindset is not 100% where it's supposed to be at, meaning you have some issues and you need some help, go get your mental help. Because it's so important. Don't look at that as a weakness. When it comes to the police departments, I think they need a job. They do a better job in taking care of their officers. When they get injured, keep in contact with your officer. Don't just check on them because you're trying to look at their bad things, because there's those. They're always trying to find the ones that are ruining the system, which have ruined it for us. But go look at your officer. Check their well-being. Not just say, hey, what do you need? Your house or whatever, or hey, how are you doing? And then, okay, bye. No, it's go check on them. Go physically go to their house and say, hey, do you mind if I come over there? Do you mind if I help you with something? But most officers, as we know, will think, oh, they're coming to check on me because they're just seeing if I'm home or whatever. No, officer and the department have to work together. The officer has to realize that his supervisor, if he's coming to check on his house, if he might be that one officer or one supervisor who is checking on him for the right reason, because he's going to help him with chores at the house, or if he's by himself, or say, hey, do you need financial help? How the associations, we pay into these associations. Why are they not helping these officers say, hey, do you need some financial help? What can we do? There's GoFundMe now. There's all sorts of different types of funding. They can find ways to help those officers if that's what they need. Be that advocate for those officers, not just be like, okay, well, do you need help? Okay, you have a time limit. Here's your work comp stuff. Or you got to make sure you send that in. Stop being such a, what's the word I want to use?
Bureaucrat.
Yes.
Don't be a robot. Actually be interested in the well-being of your people.
Yes, because they all talk about this thin blue line, family. But realistically, a lot of the people in the department, they aren't those, because they're the ones that think, although they're just milking the system. They're just trying to work the system. When it's a legitimate injury and they're like, no, I'm injured. I can't do things by myself. I don't have someone to wash my car. I don't have somebody to take my trash out. If someone is married, they might have the luxury of having that spouse or kids. When you're not, and you're by yourself, it's even worse, because you don't have that extra help. And then heaven forbid you take your trash out. And now the city's like, oh, you took your trash out. You're injured. No, I have to take my trash out, whether I'm injured or not, So yeah, so I would think have the department be a little bit more involved in that way.
If anybody's got any more questions of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
They can either call me, and I don't mind them calling me on my phone. I'll give you the number you can post. And then my Instagram, which is Cristina Coria Survivor, and there's no H in my name. So so everyone always adds that H. Or they can get me on Facebook. They can, they have any, and then I'll give you my email so they can email me. So any way they want, they can get a hold of me.
I'll put all that in the show notes.
Sounds
I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.